watching TVP World News. I'm Jonasz Lewiński. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that the unpredictability of US President-elect Donald Trump could help end the war in Ukraine. Speaking in an interview last evening, Zelenskyy added that he would really like to see that quality of President Trump's apply to Russia.
Trump can be decisive. I think that's the most important thing for us, that his qualities, they are there. He can be decisive in this war. He can help us stop Putin. I think he's both strong and unpredictable. I would very much like to see President Trump's unpredictability apply primarily to Russia. I believe that he really wants to end the war.
The official inauguration of the Polish Presidency of the Council of the European Union will take place at the Grand Theater in Warsaw on Friday. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and European Council President Antonio Costa are set to attend. The ceremony will begin with speeches from Tusk and Costa. Both leaders will hold a bilateral meeting earlier in the day. A delegation from Ukraine is also expected to visit Warsaw on Friday in connection with the event. Poland's six-month EU Council presidency began on the 1st of January. Now, some officials see Poland's six-month term at the helm of the EU Council as a significant time for the country. Others, however, are not so optimistic. Here is more.
On one hand, Polish presidency is going to try and pick up slack after the Hungarian presidency. On the other hand, this will be a chance to create a new dynamic in the European Union. We are dealing with new commissioners and the new European Union in general. So this is truly an exceptional moment for the Polish presidency. Probably the best thing that the Polish government could do if it was willing, able and truly determined is to put the migration package on the agenda. That means lifting obligations to accept immigrants from other countries and create solutions that actually target illegal migration rather than support it. Will the Polish government succeed in that? I doubt it.
Polish farmers will take to the streets of Warsaw on Friday to protest against EU policies, as well as the import of agricultural products from Ukraine, which they say harm local farming in Poland. The demonstrators will gather outside the European Commission office at 2 p.m. local time. Then they will march through the streets of the capital to finally reach the Grand Theater, where the official inauguration of the Polish Presidency of the Council of the European Union is set to take place at 8 p.m. Over 20 agricultural organizations will participate in the demonstration. The slogan of the protest is 5 times no. Members of hunting communities unhappy with EU policies towards forest management and hunting will also be in attendance. The government of Montenegro will be looking into a total ban on weapons, Prime Minister Milokios Spajic said after a gunman killed 12 people, including 2 children, on Wednesday. The shooter opened fire inside a restaurant before fleeing the scene and turning the gun on himself, following an hours-long manhunt. Residents of the town of Sentinie are still in shock after the horrific incident.
To kill children, especially children, is completely senseless. That is more than a crime. It's something more than that. People with guns are creating chaos in the town, out of whim, shooting at random. As far as weapons are concerned, they should be put under stricter control. We need checks for people licensed to carry, their mental state, examinations for everyone who has a gun permit. As far as weapons are concerned, they are a great evil. They should be removed from the public to the extent possible. Only very few should remain in private hands.
Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico has threatened to reduce aid for Ukrainian refugees in response to Kyiv's decision to halt Russian gas transfers to Europe through its territory. Our correspondent Oskar Kateji reports from Kyiv.
So there's been no direct response from Kyiv to Fico's latest comments, but it should be seen as a further escalation in this diplomatic row between Slovakia and Ukraine, with the threat to cut off Ukraine from EU electricity, renewed, and now a further threat dealing with Ukrainian citizens in Slovakian territory. Speaking, Fico said, "We are ready to agree in a coalition to cut off electricity supplies and significantly reduce our support for Ukrainian citizens staying in the territory of the Slovak Republic." Now, as to whether this is going to change Ukraine's mind, no, this kind of blackmail isn't going to change Ukraine's mind. Ukraine gave the EU significant notice that they were not going to renew this deal, and they have followed through on that. There's no chance that Ukraine is going to back down. Now, it should be said that Ukraine has increased its energy dependency on Europe by 5-fold over 2024. So Slovakia does have leverage here to threaten Ukraine, but it's not going to have any impact. Speaking today, the foreign minister, Sybiha, said, "We have cut off some of Putin's last leverage over Europe and his use of energy as a weapon." They're really quite firm words coming out of Kyiv that really show no intention of backing down and resuming gas transfers to Europe. But where this diplomatic row between Slovakia and indeed Hungary, where they position themselves going forward with Kyiv, remains to be seen.
Poland's electricity and gas transmission system operators will step in and provide Kyiv with emergency energy supplies if needed, a high-level official confirmed to TVP World. It comes after Slovakia threatened to cut off electricity to the war-ravaged country as a wider energy spat engulfs the bloc. Our correspondent Angela Skujins reports from Brussels.
A high-level official has confirmed to TVP World that if Russia continues to target Ukraine's crippled energy infrastructure and if Slovakia gets serious on its threat to cut off emergency energy supplies to Kyiv, that Poland will step in. Now, this spokesperson comes from the Polish representation to the EU, and they said that emergency aid would be provided through Poland's gas and electricity transmission system operators. It comes as energy has become a hot-button issue in recent weeks across the continent. It started when the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced that he would not seek to extend a contract with Russian state-owned gas company Gazprom. Now, Gazprom has been pumping cheap Russian gas through Ukraine's Soviet-era pipes through to other EU member states. Now, when the Ukrainian president made this announcement, it angered a range of EU member states. This includes Slovakia. And in an act of retaliation, Slovakia threatened to cut off energy and electricity supplies to Ukraine. But with this recent announcement and confirmation from Poland, I'm sure that many Ukrainians will be happy that the lights will be kept on for a little while longer. My name is Angela Skujins, reporting from Brussels for TVP World.
Ukraine's decision not to extend the gas transit deal with Russia also sparked an energy crisis in Moldova. Bordering Ukraine from the south, Moldova and its Russian-influenced breakaway region of Transnistria are struggling to provide electricity and heating to their citizens.
Homes are going cold after large-scale gas cutoffs began in Moldova's pro-Russian breakaway region of Transnistria.
This year did not start out easy. Yes, there is a problem. The gas supplies were cut off, but, well, we had been preparing for it.
The separatist region was left without Russian gas after Ukraine's 5-year transit deal with Russia was halted. Kyiv staunchly opposes funding Putin's war machine. The local energy company issued recommendations, such as sealing windows and balcony doors, covering them with blankets, and dressing warmly. Until recently, Russia supplied Transnistria with some 2 billion cubic meters of gas per year, part of which was later sold to Moldova. The rest of Moldova has been independent of Russian supplies since 2023, purchasing on European markets instead.
The losses Putin is going to incur with this transit halt to Europe are not going to be really very dramatic. There are other things, and there are many other signs testifying that he's running out of resources.
We're treating this not as an energy crisis, but as a security crisis induced by Russia to destabilize Moldova, both economically and socially.
Officials in Transnistria argue that Moldova is simply trying to transfer its outlandish Gazprom debt, some $700 million, to the unrecognized republic.
They reprinted Gazprom's letter. They changed the names and addresses and sent it to Tiraspol Transgas in Transnistria. This is a direct lie, a provocation.
German media Deutsche Welle reports that Russia has failed to reserve any capacity to supply Transnistria via its pipeline from Turkey. Now, worries of a humanitarian crisis and the end of the region's de facto independence are on the rise.
The world saw a record 74 elections in 2024, in which more than 1.6 billion voters could cast their ballots. More votes are due in 2025. So what are the key races and their potential implications domestically and internationally? Sonia Agata-Biszczan reports.
After the conclusion of numerous major elections in 2024, such as the US presidential vote,
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
we are taking a look at what to expect from elections coming up in 2025. With various presidential, parliamentary and federal elections across Europe and beyond, there is a lot to unpack.
If 2024 was defined as one of the biggest electoral year, 2025 is probably the same, not in terms of numbers of elections, but in terms of the political importance.
Polls are set to cast votes in May 2025. At present, the two leading contenders in the polls are Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, nominated by the centrist Civic Coalition, and Karol Nawrocki, backed by the former ruling right-wing party Law and Justice. The stakes are high. If Law and Justice maintains influence over the presidency, it could further obstruct Donald Tusk's government, leaving the administration paralyzed until 2027. Abroad, one of the first elections takes place across Poland's eastern border, in Belarus. Alexander Lukashenko, Belarus's president of 30 years, will run for a seventh term in what experts in Belarusian opposition describe as a farce, a sham election.
First of all, we don't call it elections. In Belarus, it's a ritual, Soviet-style type ritual. It's reappointment of Lukashenko by Lukashenko himself. So, of course, this event will not make Lukashenko legitimate in the eyes of Belarusian people.
A wave of protests swept through the country after the widely contested 2020 elections. The regime's brutal response led to an exodus of thousands of Belarusians.
Belarus is probably the most significant in terms of Polish security. Of course, we don't expect big changes because of the Belarusian regime. However, this election, in the context of the Ukraine war and of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, are really, really important.
Following the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's freeway coalition and his subsequent loss of a confidence vote in the Bundestag, snap elections are set for February 23rd. Polls favor the opposition center-right Christian Democrats and their sister party Christian Social Union. But coming in second is the hard-right Alternative for Germany, known for its pro-Russian sentiments and desire for Germany to leave the EU.
We shall not forget one important issue, and this issue is the future coalition partner of the CDU-CSU in building the government, because that will influence highly not only China policy, but also security and defense policy vis-à-vis Russia and Ukraine.
Several countries noted Russian interference in their 2024 elections. In Romania, Călin Georgescu, a critic of both the EU and NATO, unexpectedly topped the polls in the first round of the presidential vote following a controversial TikTok campaign. The results were annulled over alleged Russian influence, with new elections set for 2025.
The first round of elections should be organized sometime in March, but with all these problems lagging behind him and with all these question marks above his head, I have the tendency to believe that Călin Georgescu will not be allowed to participate again in the election.
Another country to have reported Russian interference in its 2024 election was the EU candidate Moldova. Pro-European Maia Sandu eventually won the presidential elections there, but the political dynamic in the country may shift in the 2025 parliamentary elections. If Sandu's party fails to win a majority, Moldova's road to the EU membership will be impeded.
This major victory on the 3rd of November will not happen again at the parliamentary elections, and we, in my opinion, we will see a resurrection of the Russian interests here in Moldova.
Poland's southwestern neighbors in the Czech Republic are also set to cast ballots in 2025. The latest polls give ANO, led by populist Andrej Babiš, 34.5% of the vote, well ahead of its closest rivals. Babiš's victory would strengthen a far-right axis in Central Europe, which includes Hungary's Viktor Orban and Slovakia's Robert Fico. The billionaire former prime minister has been dubbed the Czech Trump by his opponents. With rising geopolitical tensions, the importance of the upcoming elections transcends the pursuit of democratic values.
And that's all on this news bulletin. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.